Right, so it's morning, we survived, woohoo! The birds are starting to sing, the sky is blue, and the sun is doing that golden morning glow thing where it's literally making everything look pretty. So I'm peeping through the steamed up windows, blowing out my breath and seeing if it freezes midair. I will just say that waking up in a car that slept outside in the Cape Town winter next to the beach, shit's cold. So, elephant in the clown car circumstances aside, that's kind of not a bad view to wake up to. But then I made the catastrophic error of turning my head to innocently take in the mountain view. Like, excuse me for having the audacity to enjoy a sunrise while in crisis. What my eyes were accosted with was a woman waking up from sleeping outside in front of someone's garage door. Now, instead of getting up and removing herself from public view, she just spread eagles her legs right where she sits and just lets her bladder empty itself. She was not wearing any underwear, and that is when I woke up that morning.
Everybody has a dirty little secret. Mine had 4 wheels, no bathroom, and the nerve to call itself temporary. I'm Mika, and this is Accidentally Homeless, where survival has jokes, rock bottom has wheels, and the scenic route goes straight through hell.
This episode, we stop spiraling. We bully chaos into a routine, and we start managing money like hedge fund managers on a broke bitch budget. When drama and shell shock decide that you're no longer a paying customer, you get dumped on routine's doorstep. And that's kind of where we were, right? In the land of routine, monotony, and boredom. And here's the thing that no amount of survival prep will tell you. Routine was the cyanide cocktail that we didn't know could take us out. So this was our version of a 9 to 5. Wake up at the butt crack of dawn, move the car from the sleeping parking lot to the morning parking lot, and then later roll on down to the day parking lot. The sleeping parking lot because the morning and day parking lots were true crime hazards at night. The sleeping parking lot basically came with restaurants, car guards, and a smaller size, which meant fewer angles for us to eye patrol. Now, the trick was to get there at 9 p.m. and get our asses out by 5 a.m. Because no matter what, never, ever lose the status quo. Don't get caught living our secret. Morning was kind of the same thing. Get to the top parking lot, wait until 8 a.m. for the cleaners to unlock the public bathrooms. Wait for them to leave. Watch our backs and then do what we got to do. I mean, we were creatures who followed a strict routine. That was kind of our drill. Wash, rinse, repeat. So after a couple of bumpy days and nights, it boils down to this. We still have a major problem. The problem is the car. Because no matter what we do or how smart we plan, our car is full of stuff that to anyone who's noticing can clearly see that the stuff never leaves, which means that the car doesn't get emptied because it has nowhere to be emptied. Ergo, to the outside world, we are living in a car. What do we need? We need the car to look normal. We need the back seat to be free from the hostage crisis of stuff that's living on it. And we need everything that screams that we live here to just stop screaming. Now, living in a car, safety is always the primary objective. Comfort is secondary and food is optional. So if the outcome was the car needed to be emptied, the solution was, use our food money to get a storage unit. So what followed was Operation Look Less Homeless. It's simple. Find an appropriate storage unit. And by appropriate, I mean someplace close. Someplace that we could have easy access to some place with a month-to-month lease and some place that matched the exact amount of money that was left in our bank account. So we took the day and we called around, we researched, we drove around town, basically looking for a white elephant. Now, unfortunately, this is Cape Town adjacent, so shit is expensive. I mean, there were places that wanted an annual commitment. And look, we didn't plan on sticking around for the next hour, so there was literally no way in hell that we were going to commit to that. We needed a place where if the word came down, we could just pack up, collect our shit, and be gone like we was never there. Another place treated a storage unit like it was guarding state secrets. I mean, it had fingerprints, eye scanners, and way too many cameras and deposits. Like, what's next? A pap smear? I mean, we just didn't need people up in our grill like that. So finally, we found an affordable mom and pop run storage facility. Friendly people, didn't ask any questions. And the first month's rent was the deposit, and it had a month-to-month commitment. So we paid our money and got a place to get rid of our excess stuff. We got a walk-in closet, and we got a space outside of the car that was actually ours. And bonus, we blended. You know, it didn't actually matter that we didn't have any money left for food. Eating was overrated. What we had was peace of mind. We were lighter, and we finally felt like we were actually winning the game. Now, it was always life and death. You know, you get smart or you get hurt and risk never getting out of here because a thug burgled you on account of all the stuff he saw in your car, and now your throat slit because thuggery. Now see, right here is where our fuck it, money's tomorrow's problem approach to life became a problem, because money is never tomorrow's problem when you've got needs today. Money, money, money. When in homelessness, you're generally just bombarded by stupid, never-ending side quests, which tricks you into thinking that all you're doing is basically just hustling for survival, which is, I mean, yeah, that's kind of noble, but that's not how money operates, right? The truth was that, sadly, we were no more than money's bitches, doing her dirty work and making sure that she looked good. All we're doing is playing a game, and the game is whack-a-mole. So you got a shitty little fire over here, burning crisis over there that always needs to be put out simultaneously. And just when we thought that we had dealt with all the problems and survival gymnastics we had to deal with, like where to charge a phone and the car battery is running at a risk of dying and we can't idle it because that would use the precious fuel in our tank that we don't have the money to replace. Now we're hungry because we spent our money on a storage unit. So again, we're out of body fuel. And again, we are out of money. And then again, it comes down to what it always comes down to. Say it with me now. M-O-N-E-Y, baby. Money. So money is a full-time job. It is the reason that we are screwed and the reason that we can't get out of being screwed. To me, money is like a narcissistic pimp who will always multiply itself on the sweaty, beaten backs of its disciple bitches. Now, when you find yourself without money, asking for help is humiliating but necessary, because when you're broke, you don't have the luxury to be bad with money. I mean, we basically had to become meticulous planners overnight. So we started budgeting like hedge fund managers on a broke bitch budget. But before we could get there, we needed something to budget with. That meant we needed to get our hands on some money. So we did what you do as a last resort when you get initiated into the broke bitch fraternity. We asked for money. But the real bank of accidentally homeless was old mean to dry grandmama. Yeah, she helped out financially, reluctantly, conditionally, usually because the guilt of her evil past behavior came knocking. At the same time, you've got boredom that sets in. The kind of boredom that no one really talks about or sees coming. The waiting for Godot kind of boredom, where it's just hours spent sitting in a car with nowhere to go and nothing to do. You know, that kind of boredom sharpens your paranoia and it pours rocket fuel into your imagination tank. So regular people watching turns into people watching that just snorted a line of Red Bull, which is where things took a turn. Because what do you mean we're homeless, have never-ending money problems, but we're bored? What is a 50-something couple who fight like Tom and Jerry, a truck driver with a permanent butt crack, and a beach parking lot have in common? Well, for 4 months, they were my neighbors. And they also happen to be my Netflix. The subscription fee was sleeping in a car. Now, the cruel beauty of homelessness is that you could literally be fighting for your life financially and have problems oozing out of your pores, and at the same time, you find yourself living these unconstitutional levels of boredom. So what do? We started making our own stories about our neighbors, like, you know, one does with house neighbors. So in any neighborhood, there's always that one house where you can just tell that there's a lot of sketchy shit going down over there, a lot of weird sounds, and a lot of drama. But you know that they're the kind of people that'll probably kill you in the street if they caught you looking sideways at their lawn. Now, that was Tommy and Rowena. No idea what their real names were, but to us, they were Tommy and Rowena. Tommy was a creepy-looking motherfucker with a thin gray ponytail and a vibe that made him look like a long-haul trucker from 1992, who was obviously, secretly, a serial killer. Now, Rowena only put up with the dude because he had a car and cigarettes. She was a tiny firecracker of a woman who lived rough and feared no man or woman and had no issue with beating up Tommy in the middle of the street in front of everyone. So clearly they hated each other, but mutually assured destruction is what kept them together. Then there was the middle-aged single dude, also in his 50s, low jeans with an ass crack that just wouldn't quit, crawling in and out of his single-seat tiny car like he wasn't Mr. Mole trying to break into Thumbelina's house. You know, I still don't know how the man fit, let alone slept in that car. But he would basically disappear for days, sometimes weeks, and then reappear like nothing ever happened, which, I mean, obviously it meant that he could only be an international contract killer or maybe an offshore oil rig worker. So in between all of that, there were the everyday beachgoers and the treasure hunters. The treasure hunters. So they would show up every morning in their headphones and treasure sniffing gear with the hopes that today would be the day that they would find 1,000-year-old buried treasure. We got to the point where paranoia, boredom, observation, and a little bit of insanity took us into unhinged territory. So there was this father and son that opened up a small bakery. But this was the kind of place that kind of already felt like it was living on borrowed lives. I mean, the dad worked and the son rode his bike around all day like he was casing the area. Never lifted a finger to help. So we decided that they were either in witness protection from the mob or training for a life in the mob. And then finally, there was this surfer dude living with his mom, completely unbothered by life and reality. So this dude would like wake up, smoke weed, surf with friends, come back, hang on the porch, smoke weed again, dinner with friends, repeat. I don't know. He looked like a boatie or maybe a hunter. Like reality was optional and he'd kind of just like opted out. And then there were the tourists. So many damn tourists. I mean, none of this was obviously real, but I think to us it made the hours just bearable enough. It became easy to spot who didn't belong in this picture-perfect town because when you don't belong, spotting someone else who doesn't belong kind of just becomes second nature. So here's the thing about escapism and reality. Reality is always just lurking behind a window, watching, just waiting for us to fall into the false trap of bearable reality our escapism lured us into. And then bam! Pounces. It hits you smack dab in the throat. Like the time that we saw a woman who'd been hobbling around with one bare foot and one hole covered sock for days. Now, we didn't have much, right? But we did have extra socks without holes to give her, and that's exactly what we did. And I think we did a good thing. We did a kind thing. We did a charitable thing. And when you're the one that's in a position of need and you can give to someone else, that is like a cup of hot chocolate to the heart. Only to wake up the next morning to a beautiful sunrise, a fuzzy heart, and the same woman who helped us leaning against the garage door of her regular sleeping spot, legs just wide open, no underwear, and just letting her bladder rip as she sat where she slept. Yeah, and that was good morning. That was reality reminding us where we were, and a reminder to never think that this was bearable or doable. This was the world of calling a spade a fucking shovel, not the world of niceties and soft diffusion, politeness and political correctness. This was the world of homelessness, and it had a default setting. Spade, meet motherfucking shovel. Now, the gut wrecker here is that this is now my world, and I was a part of it. But I mean, that couldn't be right because I wasn't that. My ego kept yelling, this was not my haystack, and these were not my needles. Except it was my haystack, and these were my needles. So there was this guy wandering around all day carrying a full-size broken vacuum cleaner on foot, trying his darndest to sell to literally anyone who made eye contact with him. So eventually, he spotted us in the car. Now this dude took one look at us and thought, these are my people. And I'm thinking, bitch, I'm wearing Karen Walker sunglasses. The fuck gave you the idea that we are kin? Have you seen me? Have you seen you? And then it hit me. I mean, he knew exactly what a homeless person looked like. And to him, our home was a car, which meant we were his people. And I think that hit harder than it needed to. And it wasn't because he was wrong. It was because he was right. Because at some point, I crossed over into the untouchable caste. I was now a part of a societal category that I'd spent my whole life believing only happened to other people. You know, for us, it was a conscious effort to make sure that we never looked homeless. I mean, we moved constantly, so no one ever noticed that we actually never left. I mean, the homeless community knew, but really no one else did. And to us, survival depended on that distinction because at this point, survival still held pride. And then came the minor inconvenience of needing to eat. The very simple reality that if we don't eat, eventually we'll just die. So what do you do when you reach the point where it's your third or fourth round of going days without food and even an eye roll at the situation just kind of seems excessive? Well, you start watching the queue outside church a little more closely. So once a week around 5 p.m., a line would form outside church, which was right across from the top day parking lot. Now, the same people would show up and leave with grocery bags. Here's the problem. We were bougie. Our egos were yet to be checked. We were not those people. But there we were, hungry and out of options, facing a pretty good-looking solution to our impending death problem. But we weren't just going to pull up and join the Gen Pop line. No. We decided that we would go in business hours, as if we'd somehow discovered the classy end of rock bottom. So we laid our cards on the table for the church folk. You know, we were living in a car, we'd gone days without eating, and we just needed something to eat. It was a slam dunk. I mean, how could they say no? This is Jesus's house, okay? If help lived anywhere, it was here. We walked out empty-handed. The church had plenty of food. Rice, pasta, beans, the usual items considered appropriate for people experiencing food insecurity. The kind of food that you're incredibly grateful for when you can't fit your own food bill. If you have a kitchen. We had a hatchback. So there we were. Screwed. Again. Out of options. Again. And what's worse is that not only were we still hungry, but now we had nothing to show for the total humiliation we just voluntarily put ourselves through. No miracle, no food, no Hail Mary plan. Nothing had changed. Same car, same parking lot, same problems. Just emptier stomachs. The church visit basically changed nothing, and yet it changed everything, because now what? Where were we going? What was the plan? I mean, there was just no way in hell that we were just going to do nothing, roll over, and accept this. We'd handled the side quests. Safety, check. Storage, check. Blending in, check. We could survive here. That was never the question. The question was, how long could we live in something that was only ever meant to be temporary? Because we couldn't just stay here like this, like we're trying to scoop, water out of a sinking ship with a coffee mug. It always came back to the same question. Okay, but what the fuck now? So it seemed obvious. Get a job. Any job. Just start over like a normal person. But normal kind of flew out the window the moment we feng shuied our car that now was our home. A job meant pretending. It meant keeping track of what lie I told as to why my mom was sitting in the parking lot all day waiting for me to finish work. It meant showing up in different outfits, showing up on time, pretending that everything was just perfectly fine. And my mom, well, according to the rules of the world, she was giving spoiled milk in the fridge past her sell-by date for work. So we were kind of stuck in this strange gap between what you're supposed to do and what we can actually do. And somewhere in there, something else was born. It wasn't logic. It wasn't strategy. It was more purpose-driven delusion. Because when you run out of practical answers, your mind just kind of starts grasping at straws. Maybe this wasn't a shit show. Maybe it wasn't something that I caused or failed to prevent. Maybe it was just what happened. Like a rock breaking off in space and crash landing in someone's backyard. An unavoidable disaster with a predetermined destination. And if that sounds like a comforting idea, it's not. It's just the thing that keeps you moving. Because hope in situations like this doesn't show up as logic. It shows up like optimism's unhinged cousin. Beach blonde, bubblegum chewing, and absolutely certain that this is just all going to work out. Idea. Write a short film about what we're living. Enter it into a competition. Win $5,000. Fix everything. Okay, yeah, that was naive. It was unrealistic, and it made perfect sense. Because when survival becomes your 24/7, hope starts thinking outside the box. But I think let's just get something clear here, right? You don't survive something like this by being rational. You survive by believing in something unhinged and just believable enough to get you through the next moment. Because it's balls to the walls or bust. We had systems, we had routines, we had figured this out. Which is exactly when life decided to humble us.